Untamed.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Platform.
iOS, it's only sport. That's the name of this podcast. It's also the name of the radio show we do 1 till 4 every afternoon on the Platform. You can listen back to the whole show via Platform Plus or the highlights package that we're about to present to you. We're talking about the All Blacks, the World Cup squad named yesterday. Is the split right? 18-15 as opposed to what many thought would be a 19-14. Are we taking enough loose forward cover? And is it about time that we just started playing our best 15, our best 15 and our best 15? Justin Marshall and Murray Mexted will join us with their thoughts. Women's World Cup. 2 more quarterfinalists found last night, 2 to go tonight, and then it's all on this weekend. As we do always, tablets in hand, I say gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. It's all about the World Cup All Blacks selection squad. Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
The All Blacks have a chance, and right now you'd like to think a pretty good chance of winning the Rugby World Cup. Now, this is a change of tune from me. I started the very first show of the year, January 16th it was, saying boldly, we will not win the tournament. That was after a very mixed and muddled year last year, that's results-wise. Plus, looking at a group of players who largely just weren't up to it. And what I mean by that is couldn't consistently perform on a world stage. Everything to prove. That's what I thought starting the year. And here we are now. 33 names named to contest the Cup in France, and these blokes are it. There are no others, people. There is no magic wand waving across every Super Rugby or NPC player in New Zealand, suddenly creating another Richie McCaw or the beloved Jonah or Christian Cullen out of nowhere. The squad you saw yesterday has to be good enough. And I've got to say, honestly, I'm feeling a lot more confident now than I did January the 16th when we kickstarted the year. Confident in the way we're playing probably more than all of the individual players named. We still don't have world-class players across every position. We'd still be lucky, you'd think, to put more than 3 or 4 players in any World 15 that anyone would select. But hey, we dispatched Argentina, South Africa and Australia in those first 3 tests of the year, 3 matches in 4 weeks, and we were pretty damn impressive. That should give people plenty of confidence as we approach the biggest tournament we ever play every 4 years. We are a different team from last year. Physically, we are competing at a much higher dynamic level. Combinations seem settled and confident. Finally, we have found our best number 10. Mo'unga increasingly looks like he can control a test match, even from difficult come-from-behind positions and circumstances like we saw on the weekend. Plus, in Will Jordan, we have a genuine game-breaking superstar, a guy who single-handedly, with a flash of brilliance, can create the sort of opportunities that win you tight knockout World Cup matches. Now, I don't know if we are going to be the best team in France, but who is? Ireland, France, us, South Africa? You got to say that that's the top 4 teams. Then England, Australia, Scotland, maybe whoever. The best 4 teams all happen to be on one side of the draw. That's where we are. Getting through that quarterfinal could be the toughest match that we face all tournament. This is it. This is the squad entrusted with winning the World Cup. Forward ho to France, people. The only question, and we won't know the answer until the end of October, are these players really going to be good enough?
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The Platform.
Lachlan, sports news headlines. What do we got?
I'll start with the FIFA Women's World Cup.
Go on.
A couple of good games on last night.
Well, not according to Michael Laws, they weren't.
Well, is Michael hosting the sports show?
No.
Is Michael producing the sports show?
No.
So Michael's opinion when it comes to football, I think it's fair to say, doesn't have the weight that yours or mine does. With all
still
due
an
respect.
opinion, though.
That's an opinion. England beating Nigeria 0-0 after 120 minutes of action. English star Lauren James was red carded in the 87th minute for stamping on a Nigerian player.
Ridiculous, wasn't it?
Yeah, the attacking midfielder sent packing in the 87th minute. England managing to hold on until the penalty shootout and winning 4-2 in the shootout. Australia taking on Denmark, they won 2-0, so they're through to the quarter-finals. On tonight, we've got Colombia up against Jamaica at 8 o'clock, that kickoff. France, Morocco at 11. I think both games are across the ditch. Yeah, so Colombia, Jamaica is in Melbourne. France, Morocco must be in Sydney. No, Highmarsh Stadium. That's Adelaide, isn't it? No, you don't know, do you?
No, I would never.
I think it's Adelaide. So that's what's going on in the FIFA Women's World Cup tonight. All Blacks team naming yesterday at 5 o'clock. The 33 players named for the World Cup. And as well as those 33 named to head to France, there were 3 others that coach Ian Foster has confirmed he will take with him as training partners of sorts, you could call them that. Summer Penny Fina, the blindside flanker, probably the unluckiest of players, who many thought would probably make it and make the All Blacks squad for the World Cup. Halfback Brad Weber, hooker George Bell. If you don't know who George Bell is, he plays for Canterbury and the Crusaders. He's only 21, I think. But clearly one of our most promising young hookers. They will fill those 3 roles as they cover key positions for the squad, which heads to Twickenham to take on South Africa on August 26 in their last pre-World Cup hit-out. They open the tournament on September 8 against hosts France. England coach Steve Borthwick revealed his squad for the World Cup late last night New Zealand time. He's picked 19 forwards and 14 backs. It's a slightly different split to the All Blacks 18 and 15. Over 1,400 caps named in this England squad for the tournament. A couple of key, shock omissions, should I say. Centre Henry Slade not picked, and loose forward Alex Dombrin also missing out. Argentina coach Michael Cheika has included rookie fullback Martin Bogado in his 33-man squad. Bogado plays for the Highlanders, if you didn't realise. Plays in Super Rugby. He's only taken 5 props. That was Michael Cheika to France. He's opting for an extra back. Former Silver Fern and renowned coach Margaret Foster insists that Dame Nolene Taldor remains the best person for the national job, despite the Silver Ferns finishing 4th at the World Cup in Cape Town earlier this week. Margaret Foster saying she's just one of those types of coaches that is world class. I think many would agree as well. I don't think there's anyone better qualified than Dame Nolene Taldor. And finally, Anna Taylor won a world title on her birthday as she and fellow Paralympian Nicole Murray secured New Zealand's first gold medals at the Para World Cycling Track Cycling Championships in Glasgow. Good stuff, Anna Taylor and Nicole Murray. Very good stuff. That's what's making news, Martin.
Devlin.
Oh my goodness me!
The platform.
Justin Marshall, 81 tests for the All Blacks. Won't be calling the World Cup for Sky. He's working for Supersport out of South Africa. All Blacks squad named yesterday. Justin frustrated at what he saw in Dunedin on Saturday night. He says, play the A-team, play the A-team, and then, if in doubt, play the A-team. Are we meant to be worried about what we saw in the first half, or is that just what we should have expected given the amount of changes that were made?
Oh, look, I don't think we should expect the All Blacks to be a bit dysfunctional, albeit, Australia were really accurate in everything that they did. When we had this discussion last Monday, I was very adamant that I didn't feel that Ian Foster should be naming a side that is anything bar the one that he had named for the 3 test match previous, because I felt that they had really good momentum, they had good confidence, they were really starting to get in sync with the game plan. And I didn't feel that making wholesale changes just to give people an opportunity to play in such a short window of warm-up that we've got was the right idea, and it proved to be that way. Things got better in the second half, but that was only ultimately after introducing a few players that had been in previous test matches. So, I don't think it was a good decision. I don't think it was great in terms of stifling what was already starting to be created. So I think it was a step backwards.
How are we meant to assess now those 4 matches and then the South African one going into the tournament? At some stage, we've got to see all these players, don't we? And it's, the way the build-up goes, I look at it like this. We got France, major game. That means the 18 plays. Then we go Namibia. Then we've got Italy, and I'd suspect that the A-team will play that game. Then there's Uruguay. Then there's the quarterfinal. Is that how you see it going as well, that we'll see them every second game? We'll see our first 15?
I hope not. I just feel that we need to continue to keep trucking these players out that are going to be the team that play that quarterfinal. That side just needs to, again, they just need to galvanise. They need to be really assured of the game plan. They need to be confident. And chopping and changing, I don't think helps that at all. Like honestly, Marty, they gave Sean Stevenson a test match and they gave Sam Penny Finau a test match. Now, they're now All Blacks, but they're not even the Rugby World Cup squad. Now, what the hell did that achieve? Like, honestly. So I'm a bit lost as to why they did what they did at the weekend. I still feel very adamant that if they're going to give players game time, they feel that they need it. They should know enough about them now if they're in a World Cup squad. Give them the time off the bench, but let that team create its own rhythm and synergy and let them go through. Look, at the end of the day, it's 7 test matches to win a Rugby World Cup. Now, that's not a hard ask for the modern player. Super Rugby teams do it. For the second half of the season, they just truck the players out there. So, yeah, in my mindset, no, I wouldn't like to see them completely change the team during the course of the Rugby World Cup just to give players a run. Give them a run off the bench.
Justin Marshall's on the platform with us. A couple of things about that. Okay, so we have a rule in Super Rugby where you're not allowed to play 5 matches in a row. And also last year we had this opportunity when we had Wales, Scotland and then England to play that 18 3 weeks in a row, which is what's going to have to happen to win this tournament, quarter semi-final within 15 days. Is a first 15 capable of playing 3 test matches in a row in that time?
Well, that's what they stand them down from Super Rugby for. Like, honestly, they say that they need to preserve these players that have international rugby because they play more volume than anyone else. So they stand them down so they actually are capable of playing test after test after test. So that's the rationale behind it. Look, at the end of the day, think of last year's end-of-year tour where they made wholesale changes in the Scotland game and nearly got caught with their pants down again.
Yeah.
And it just, to me, is... Look, I played a really good All Black teams, and yeah, I had All Black teams that, you know, where we struggled away. But yet, even in both cases, for the majority of the time, we trucked the same team out, and we got very good at winning. We got very good at knowing each other. You know, like Steve Hansen, for all he goes on about the fact that he feels Ian Foster needs to experiment and he needs to try players out. His success was built on trucking the same team out every week. Martin Nodder and Conrad Smith were there. Corey Jane was there along with Ben Smith and Israel Dag out the back. Aaron Smith was the halfback, DC was the 10. They just put the same side out, the same Lucy's, you know, Kieran Reid, Jerome Kano, Richie McCaw. So, and they were incredibly successful. So why all of a sudden is this mindset of Ian Foster that you need to give out All Black jerseys and then all of a sudden those guys are not even in the picture? And the other guys that are starting to find some rhythm, that back row of Frizzell, Artie Sarvier and Sam Kane, were starting to really get some rhythm. Frizzell was playing out of his skin. Well, okay, now he's had too much, or we feel that we need to try something else. It's like bullshit, mate.
I agree. I agree with him. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I agree. That's why I'm asking you the questions, because we're sitting here scratching our heads as fans going, you know, well, why? What is this? I know that you have to be interchangeable, don't you? Because at a World Cup we'll get injuries. And so every one of those 33, to me, has to be able to be selected to play. Otherwise, why the hell are you on the plane to start with? So I suppose his way of thinking is that, look, I need to see these guys under pressure, under load, as opposed to just on a training paddock. But as you say, if you've already been selected at that level for the All Blacks, you've got to be able to play. You have to play.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely you have to. And look, you know, I got to 2 semi-finals of Rugby World Cups, but you know, in 2003, we got beaten by a very good Australian side. We're probably guilty of looking too far ahead. We were looking at England because we put 50 on them when we'd played them about 6 weeks prior. But we nearly dropped the ball, you know, in one of our pool games, and that's because we made changes when we probably didn't need to. And equally, you know, in 99, when John Hart all of a sudden decided that Christian Cullen was a centre and Jeff Wilson was a fullback, it was like, what the you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the time or the year to experiment. It's the time where in 3 years you've built a side that goes along and has the know-how, has the combinations to win the Rugby World Cup. It's not a year to be asking questions. You should have the answers to those questions by now, and those players should be ready to front up, stand up and go and win that World Cup together.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
Next!
Lachlan, is this All Black squad capable of winning the World Cup? I said at the start of the year, no. I started this show by saying, actually, I think those players... Well, Tim,
can I just say...
I think we're in a position where I have a lot more confidence because I think we can be competitive with anyone. This time last year, I did not have that confidence.
Well, can I just say for the record, by the way, I remember when you said what your sermon was going to be about, what you were going to say on air, I said it's ridiculous to suggest that we can't win the World Cup. Anyway, I've toed and froed of this because I was at the height of my my excitement and anticipation, but my confidence in this team in that South Africa match. But I don't know what it was, but when that All Black squad for the World Cup was named yesterday, I felt less confident because I just think there should be 6 loose forwards. And that immediately just left a sour taste in my mouth, especially without a bona fide second option at blindside should something happen to Shannon. Now, obviously, if Shannon Frizzell gets injured, Samipeni comes into the squad, but I would much rather have him in the squad already, or at least have a backup for all 3 loose forward positions, the 6, 7 and 8, ready-made at the tournament. So I just feel a little, I don't know, uneasy. I still maintain a fair bit of confidence that we can get to the semis at least, but I'm just a bit more uneasy than I thought I'd be.
So we both agree we would have named Samipeni given the way that he plays.
Yeah.
So Justin's
we don't
question.
need 5 outside backs.
Well,
I
agree with you. Given what Justin said, why did we play Stevenson and why play Samipeni in that test match on the weekend if they weren't going to be named in the squad? See, I just automatically assumed that they would be named. That's why they were playing.
Do you remember, I just remember this now, when we had Ian Foster on the show last week, you asked him about, do you have your World Cup squad pretty much in pen?
Yeah, he said yes.
And he said, well, I'm not losing any sleep, Marty.
There you go.
So he had his squad pretty much. So then why would you play them?
Yeah, it's confusion, isn't it?
I mean, you're teasing them essentially, aren't you?
Yeah, well, there are 3 players that have been added to kind of injury cover, right?
Yeah.
That go. And what we understand, people, is that they aren't allowed to train with the team. Once they're in front, they're not allowed to train. So
but they don't stay in France.
No, they've got to come home.
Yeah.
So there's actually a week between. Like if a player goes down, by the time you get it, it's a week. It's a
strange
bloody rule. Is it a mistake not to take Weber and to take Christie?
I think so. And I think Justin said it perfectly. That Christie debuted last year, I'm pretty sure. Or he debuted in 2021. And so he doesn't have the reps under his belt, and Weber does. So I'd much rather take Brad Weber. And I really like Roygaard. I said this a lot yesterday. I liked what I saw in Melbourne, so I'd absolutely take him because I think he's the halfback of the future.
Next!
Beauden Barrett named as a first 5. What does that tell you? He is now back to being number 2 behind Mo'unga. That's clear, isn't it?
Well, he was going to be named a first 5 anyway, probably.
I thought he was going to be named a fullback.
Well, no, because then he would be an outside back, and so they wouldn't be able to take as many as they could then. So it would have been him, Will Jordan, Lester, Mark Talia, and then one of Caleb and Narawa can't be named then.
Does he now supersede Mackenzie? I think he does. I think in any important test match for the All Blacks, if Mo'unga goes down, Beauden Barrett takes that
Yeah,
shirt.
I think so.
He has to, doesn't he?
But I think that was also by default because he's been playing at fullback. The best team will have him at fullback, and should Mo'unga go down, he'll slot into 10. Would he? I don't know. No, he would, and then Will Jordan would probably go to fullback. I think that would be what Foster would do.
Next!
World-class players. I suggested this at the very start of the show. Who do we have? And this is why, people, when it came to the beginning of the year and I said the All Blacks are not going to win, because I'm looking at those names and what I saw of the results last year and thought, unless there's going to be dramatic individual personal performance from each of these players who couldn't compete last year at the levels that we needed them to compete, well, we're going to go and we're going to be big underdogs in France. Well, what we've seen in the first 3 test matches of the year is that there has been dramatic improvement. Combinations have got better. Balls are sticking. Genuine world-class players in the All Blacks side. And I'm not saying that if you named a World 15 today that these guys would be in, but genuine world-class players. Who are they in that All Blacks squad?
Will Jordan.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think Adi Savia.
Yes.
I think Aaron Smith still.
Yes. I've got another one. One more, at least.
Well, you've probably got Beauden Barrett.
I've got Scott Barrett
as
a world-class player right now. One of the best in the world in his position.
Well, I would have said Richie Mo'unga.
Okay, well, there's another one. So there's 5. We've got 5 now, right?
If you're talking world-class, you've got to be the best or at least one of the 2 best in your position.
One of the two best, I'd say, in the position, yeah.
Yeah. So I'd say Mo'unga. Yeah, Scott Barrett, yeah.
Well, this is a big improvement on last year, mate, because last year you could barely name an All Black that would get anywhere, okay?
No one was playing well.
They weren't playing well.
I mean, if we're talking the best in their position right now, it's a bit of a hot take, but I would say Mark Talia's in that conversation as one of the best wingers.
An All Black squad was announced yesterday for the Rugby World Cup. No mention of a guy called Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. This time last year, he was being named in the All Blacks squad to go and play in Japan in that test match and then the Northern Hemisphere tour. Not a single word from any media organisation, from no one, from no commentators, nothing. I haven't heard his name mentioned at all. Are we just meant to look the other way now? Forget about this, the unfortunate experiment, no one talking about it?
Yeah, because I think he is. Did you see him at the Roosters-Sea Eagles game last week?
No.
So the Roosters had a had a celebration for a 10-year anniversary for their 2013 grand final winning team, and all the players who played on that team were there, or the ones that can make it. And Roger was there and is being interviewed by Channel 9. He's talking about how much he just can't wait to get back into league, and he misses the pace, he misses the way the game's played. He's really looking forward to it. He was wearing a retro Roosters shirt. I think Sonny Bill was there geeing him up as well. I just thought, you've checked out. You've absolutely checked out.
Of course he's checked out.
But everyone has. You know, fans, other players and teams and coaches.
Is it a bit embarrassing now? Is that what it has become?
Who for?
Well, for everyone involved, from those from the rugby union who signed him to start
I think it's embarrassing for them. I think it's embarrassing for the administrative people who I think forced this through.
Why was he selected this time last year, if that's the case? He's so far off the radar now, so behind the eight ball in terms of his ability to play those positions. He's not even wasn't even selected for the Super Rugby
which is
side.
strange, because in Super Rugby last year, he was probably the form 12.
There you go, and we were all talking about it. John Kerwin was saying put him in the All Blacks.
Got to the Island Series
what the hell
and he
has
barely
happened
played.
12 months. He just disappeared. He just jumped off a cliff, didn't he? All Black legend Murray Mexted, his thoughts on the selection of the All Black World Cup squad. Are we a little light in the loose forwards? A 18-15 split as opposed to England's 19-14? Let him explain. Let's start, Mex, with your thoughts on the game on the weekend, and then we will move to the World Cup squad.
Well, I mean, I hate to say I told you so, but I did. Last week I said I'd leave the team the same because, you know, to win the Rugby World Cup, you've got to win it. You can't just compete and maybe win the game. You've actually got to be the best team. And rhythm and flow is an important part of that. And I think that you get rhythm and flow if you've got good combinations that know each other, and you've got good momentum, and you've got good confidence. And I think we had all those things leading into the weekend. And I think the selectors will be feeling pretty sick at half-time. I certainly was, actually, because I thought it had taken away that advantage we had achieved from the first 3 matches. So, so I was very, very relieved to see the improved performance in the second half and actually to come through the game and win it. So, although I didn't think the risk, they took a risk, didn't they, to change the team, a winning team. It didn't come off, but it did answer a number of questions, which we all wanted to see. And now the team's been announced and they've come to fruition. But I think number one, it answered that the decision-making at halfback and first 5 was probably not. Decision-making might have been okay, execution maybe not as much, would be the point, I'd say. So I think it clarified, though, that, Mackenzie is a 15-10, and Christie's the second best halfback. So I think that came through. So therefore, they've resolved that area. I think when Moanga came on, he came on with a hiss and a roar, and all the doubters, including myself, were proven wrong because he showed a clear difference under huge pressure, and showed probably exposed the inexperience of Mackenzie. Now, Mackenzie's an outstanding rugby player, and something happens when he's on the field. But I think that Moanga has a vastly more experienced first 5, and he showed it in that game. And probably the backup was probably Bowden Barrett, actually, if something happened to him. But Mackenzie's certainly worthy of being in the World Cup squad and could be an X-factor by bringing him on as a impact player. If something was wrong and the game needed changing, you brought him on for 20 minutes, it would change the game. So I think he vindicated his selection in the World Cup, like Christie. So that was probably quite good. And the third thing that I think that was pretty obvious was Taukei'aho. Under pressure and maybe after a couple of very good performances for the All Blacks, his line-out throwing was found wanting on a couple of occasions. He didn't quite have the edge. It probably reminded everyone that Cody Taylor and Dane Coles are our 1 and 2, not necessarily in that order. And that Taukei'aho is an ideal backup and once again, a great sort of a player to bring on as an impact player. So I think it answered a whole bunch of questions. The third one was probably Will Jordan probably came through that game as a good backup fullback, but a first choice wing because he's been playing outstanding rugby as a winger, and as a fullback he's a good backup. So Bowden Barrett. So I think it probably sorted out a lot of their selections actually. I mean, you could also talk about the loose forwards because Finau played well, scored a try. That's pretty bloody good to do that in your first test. He's very much like Frizzell, I think. Very similar footballer, and they offer a similar amount, but Frizzell's got a bit more experience at international level, and he's been playing well this year, so he got the nod. So it's, that was another thing that probably came through. Finau will live to play another day, and so will probably Stevenson, I guess, on the wing, because there's so many wingers that are so good. I mean, it's a matter of who to leave out, not who to pick. So I think they achieved a lot. Saturday's game achieved a lot, even though I was against it. So, yeah.
Well, we had to see, Mex, didn't we? We've got to see, these players have got to, at some stage, if they are called upon, step in and replace the guy that was selected previous. And it showed very much that we've got an A team and we've got a B team. We've got players that are better than the guy that is standing behind them. But at a World Cup, there's going to be injuries. There's going to be an attrition rate. We get to that knockout stage, mate. We've got 3 test matches if we want to win it in 15 days, Saturday. And I don't think that same 15 will start every single one of those games. So we had to know. But I suppose the delicate balancing act now for Ian Foster and his selectors is how to keep all of these players at that level after the first game against France going into that quarter-final, because there is a drop-off in opponent after that, but they've all got to be ready, as I say, for that quarter-final if they're needed.
Yeah, well summed up, Marty. That's why you're in the job.
Thank you, sir.
So that was a good contribution. And I agree with most of what you're saying. I think there's a clear difference in the World Cup, though, between playing France in the first game and then playing Namibia. I mean, I think there's a hell of a difference between those two. So, the clarification of what our top 15 to 20 players is really good. Will they play them all against the Springboks at
Twickenham?
I'll let you know.
Yeah, you'll be there. Yes.
Will they play them all? And I think they will. I think that these selectors are the changes to the All Black selection panel. I think are showing dividends, and I think they're smart. And the announcement of this All Black team, it's hard to fault. You'd have to be a real miserable bugger if you found fault with that All Black squad that's touring the World Cup. So we can feel really good about that, Marty. But I think they've got everything covered. There's been a bit of talk on the breakdown and stuff like that maybe we didn't have enough loosies.
Yeah.
5 loosies. They've got so many wingers. But Fa'anuku played so well, really. He forced his way into that team, I feel. But, 5 loosies, but you've got two locks. You've got 3 world-class locks, but and they've named 4 locks to go, but 2 of those locks play flanker as well. So I don't think there's a problem because, if you were picking the team against France and Brodie Retallick, well, let's talk about the reality. He's got a small injury, so he's not going to be playing before the quarterfinals. He might play the half an hour or something running into the quarterfinals against
Uruguay, the last matches.
Uruguay, yes. He may play the last 20 minutes just to sort of give his knee a bit of a go, but, you'd think that they'd want those 3 world-class players on the field, the whole 3 of them.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. 2 matches to go tonight. It's one of the topics we're going to talk about on the Tight 5, as a matter of fact.
The Tight 5.
5 separate sporting issues, roughly 60 seconds on each. And when the bell goes, we move quickly on to the next topic. Justin Marshall says, play the A-team, play the A-team, play the A-team. Is he right? Spurs have rejected the latest Bayern Munich bid for Harry Kane. Is he going anywhere, or will you see him playing in the Premier League this weekend when the season starts again? Speaking of the Premier League, there's a whole lot of new rules. Do you like this new added time rule a la the World Cup, Lachlan, where you're going to see games going from 90 to 100 minutes plus every single game? Do the Ferns keep Noeline Taurua as their coach? And if not, who is an able replacement? The Warriors are top 4. Can you honestly believe that? And the Women's World Cup last night. Let's kick it, though, with what Justin says. I want to go back to this because, it's the first time I've heard anyone be so outspoken about this particular point about the All Blacks. Let's just revisit what the champion halfback had to say.
I just feel that we need to continue to keep trucking these players out that are going to be the team that played that quarterfinal. That side just needs to, again, they just need to galvanise. They need to be really assured of the game plan. They need to be confident. And chopping and changing, I don't think helps that at all. Like honestly, Marty, they gave Sean Stevenson a test match and they gave Sam Penny-Finau a test match. Now, they're now All Blacks, but they're not even the Rugby World Cup squad. Now, what the hell did that achieve? Honestly. So I'm a bit lost as to why they did what they did at the weekend. I still feel very adamantly that if they're going to give players game time, they feel that they need it. They should know enough about them now if they're in a World Cup squad. Give them the time off the bench, but let that team create its own rhythm and synergy.
Do you agree with what he's saying there?
Yes. I typically wouldn't have. I would have thought you want to rotate the team and give guys a rest, but I think the issue with, if you compare it to say 2007, which is probably the worst pool we've ever had at a World Cup, where we had Scotland, Italy, Romania and Portugal. And our first game was against Italy, second was against Portugal, then we had Scotland. So we kind of had a test of sorts against Italy, and then we had a really easy game, and then we had a bit of a trickier game, and then had a really easy game to finish, where it was kind of mixed and matched. This tournament, we have France, so the biggest test by a mile, first, but then we've got 3 tests where we should win them all by at least 30 or 40 points.
So his idea is if you want to try these players out like we saw on the weekend in Dunedin, you'd bring them off the bench.
Well, yeah, but what you should be doing is, because you don't have a proper test before the quarterfinal, you sort of just need to make a test yourself. You'd have to pick your best team, I think, for all 3 of those games. Keep your 15 or your 23 that you intend to play in the knockout phase, have them go through the rigours of test matches every single week, because it's not as if you've got your last pool game against, I don't know, if you were in Pool B, for example, you'd have Tonga or Scotland who are going to give you a real push. You've got nothing. So there's no point rotating the team, because what are you rotating them from? You're rotating them from taking on Uruguay? That's not, with all due respect to Uruguay, that's not a hard test for the All Blacks.
He made a hell of a lot of sense in that interview, Justin, and you can go back, revisit that, courtesy of Platform Plus. You can watch it on YouTube. I'm damn sure that it's going to get a fair few thousand people who are hooked into it. Great comments from the former All Black great on the program. Spurs have rejected the latest Bayern Munich bid. Harry Kane, is he going to be playing for Tottenham this year? He is?
Yeah,
I think he will. I just, look, I think it's too late.
I don't think he'll leave the Premier League.
Too late right now. Also, he is poised in a couple of years to overtake Alan Shearer as the greatest scorer ever in the Premier League. He's not going to go to another English club. If they can't get this deal done, he's playing for Spurs this year. Premier League new rules. There's a couple of really vague ones about the refereeing, about the technical areas. I don't believe it goes nearly as deep or as hard as it should in terms of protecting the officials from these psycho players going ape on the pitch and getting in their face and everything else. I really don't. I think it's the biggest disgrace, that and diving in football. But adding extra time to the games a la the World Cup, we see it now. Usually in any game of football, injury time goes up. It used to be called injury time, right? Stoppage time. It's usually 3 or 4 minutes. It's now going to be at least 10 every single game, Lachlan. Are you in favour? You're going to see a hell of a lot of goals being scored between the 95th and 100th minute.
Well, I guess it's more accurate because I think if you actually timed every single stoppage in a football game, you would get something like 10, 11, 12 minutes added up in total at the end to be added on after each half, and it's usually in between 4 and 7 or something. So I guess it's more honest. But then the idea of a 90-minute game is well, it's not. It turns into a 100-minute game.
Yeah. Well, even longer if you've got added minutes at half time. So,
I don't know.
So the pressure on the players playing much more minutes,
Wow, that's their job. Your job is to stay fit and healthy and play sports games.
Good God, Lachlan. Where'd you learn that from? Do the Ferns keep Nolene Toa?
Yes.
Is this a ridiculous discussion?
It's an absurd discussion.
Absolutely. I'm not even prepared to entertain it, people. If Nolene wants the job, it's hers. That's all there is to it. We always attack the coach, don't we? At any failure, at any New Zealand sports team level, at any big event, we always say that's coach's fault. Last year it was Fozzie's fault.
Why has that not happened to Jitka Klimke with the football fans?
Hello.
Yeah. And it hasn't really happened to Dame Nolan, to be fair.
No, look, and last year it was Fozzie's fault. It was all Fozzie's fault last year, wasn't it? Oh no, he got a couple of new assistants. No one seems to be prepared to give him a little bit of credit.
No,
that
maybe we were winning. No.
Maybe he learned a little bit.
Yeah.
When you are a world champion coach like Dame Nolan, you get more than a second chance. You get a third one if you want it.
Well, you don't stumble your way to a World Cup, so it's not as if that was a fluke. And this time round, I mean, Jamaica are a much stronger side. England have proved to be much better as well. Australia are Australia. And we don't have the players that we had back in 2019. The fact that Dame Nolene Toa and her assistants couldn't figure out their best seven, essentially, I don't think is because they don't know what they're doing. I think it's because they're looking at the players going, well, we don't know.
And I think the parallels were right there with the All Blacks last year as well. Yeah. Warriors are top 4. Say it.
Well, they've been top 4 for about 6 weeks now.
Say it like you mean it and believe it.
But I don't care.
Say it like you want it.
I don't care.
Say it like you did. You're desperate.
But I don't want it.
Oh, you're nasty.
Yeah, I don't want them to finish top 4. Well, okay, no. I don't care if they finish top 4. I just don't want them overtaking the Broncos.
You said you don't want it. You just said you don't want it.
Well, I'm not bothered. I don't know.
The ATM podcast, episode 49 today. You can listen to this full podcast on Platform Plus or on the YouTube channel. Mark Watson joins us to discuss a range of topics. Women's World Cup, Watto, what are you seeing? What are you liking?
Oh, I'm still liking Japan. I think Netherlands, the winner of Netherlands-Spain, I think will certainly be in the mix. Australia, I think, starting to find their mojo. It didn't surprise me the United States went out. So I thought Nigeria last night. I managed to watch that. I was at the airport and I managed to watch that game. I just thought Nigeria were unlucky. Boy, they got some wonderful players in that side. In terms of just basic skills, ball at foot, I thought Nigeria very, very unlucky to go out to England in that penalty shootout. But look, it's been a great tournament. I want to just re-emphasise this again in terms of really proud of the New Zealand public for turning up to Eden Park, turning up to Wellington, and the numbers they have been turning up to, particularly here in Auckland. And again, just the crowd last night that was in for that Australian game, remarkable. And so, look, and I think the best football's about to come. You always feel sorry for those nations that do have to exit. Not easy. But look, it is what it is. And I think this World Cup is still very, very open, Martin.
Hey, parity. I mean, that one hasn't reared its head for a couple of weeks, but get ready. The mainstream media will have their pens, articles set to post as soon as the tournament is over. Football ferns deserve pay parity. I don't know with who exactly, but you know this is coming, don't you?
Yeah, but look, I mean, watching the New Zealand women's football team, it's a bit like watching the New Zealand women's cricket team. And I'll always say this in comparison to what I see from our New Zealand female athletes and our New Zealand female swimmers. I mean, I just find those footballers, those women's cricketers, the ones that jump up and down and ask the most for money. Mate, from my experiences, I describe most of them as club athletes at best. They look just a bunch of amateurs, and they're just playing the political environment at the moment. It's all about self-interest. But look, if you go actually back, and look, I'm sure you could say the same about the men, but we are just talking about women's sport at the moment. Ever since money's come into women's cricket, ever since money's come into women's netball to a higher degree, ever since money's come into a higher degree with the women's football team, the teams have actually gone backwards. We have failed miserably. Our women's cricket team's just been awful since the whole money thing's come in. And again, they'll play the political environment. The other thing, Martin, is I'm still just sick and tired of no real negative analysis on a lot of women's sport. There's been no negative criticism of any female referees so far in this tournament. I thought the officiating last night in that game between England and Nigeria was average at best. And we've got to stop just patronising people and stop just being fans. We're not doing the sports any favour. And there's no argument. Look, during the Women's World Cup, hey, find out what the profit is, work it on a percentage of what the men get, as we've said, and pay them accordingly. And then once this Women's Football World Cup finishes, if the football ferns can still get large crowds along, hey, and you can fill up a stadium, let's have that conversation. But we said it last week, mate. This fear factor that organisations now have from our left-wing media is just absolutely putting sport at huge financial risk. You know, a lot of these athletes don't deserve to be full-time athletes. I don't think the workloads and the volume of training that they do, the amount of games they're playing justify it. Certainly not in comparison to, say, as I said last week, to say what our female swimmers are doing, what our, some of our other female athletes in other sports are doing.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. I'm the Minister of Common Sense.
Next.
So that means I get to decide topics to talk about.
We need to talk.
You can decide whatever you want to talk about.
We
if you want
need
to
to
talk.
talk.
Well, I dare say you want to talk about the football, don't you? Isn't that what you want to talk about?
We need to talk. We need to talk.
Stop poking the bear.
I mean, mate, don't you just feel like that sometimes, though? You know, I mean, you're a niggly old sod, mate, and when you had her as a girlfriend and stuff like that, there are just times, don't you, where you walk into the house and you just think, I just want to create an itch that needs to be scratched.
Not really. There was once.
Okay.
Where we were out for dinner and I was just in the mood. And I felt
See, this is what happens, and I think from a male perspective, it's more playful, isn't it? Isn't that what happens?
Yeah, it is, and then it gets to a certain point where...
It gets to a certain point where you think, why am I so stupid?
Yeah.
Let's talk Women's Football World Cup.
Next.
First text in from Mike. He says, Marty, I doubt you saw it, but South Africa against the Dutch, closer than the score suggested. Mike, I did see it. I watched most of that game. Terrible mistake from the South African goalkeeper in the end. There are some fabulous players on the South African side, especially their striker, young striker. The world game is spreading, giving many young women opportunities they may not have dreamed of. Isn't it fantastic? Yes. And this is, look, talking to Michael Laws, Lachlan, just before 1 o'clock, before we came on, if you find it boring and you don't want to watch the tournament, don't watch the tournament. That's okay. I never, ever feel like saying to anyone about sport, you must watch this. Of course, I say that all the time, but if you don't watch it, that's perfectly okay. But if you don't want to engage in this tournament, don't. It's as simple as that. If you do, you've got to make some adjustments. We're not watching the Premier League here, Lachlan. We're not watching the best exponents of round ball football on the planet. We're watching the best exponents women playing football. That's what we're watching. And so it's like every other sport. It's like basketball. It's like rugby. It's like, to me, it's like everything. You've just got to look at it and go, look, you watch the women's sprint at the Olympics, and I disagree with Michael on this. They're not running 9.59 like Usain Bolt, but that doesn't mean it's any less thrilling to me to watch. I've been getting into this tournament. It's a slow build. It's a World Cup. But question for you, is it boring? Is it like Michael says? Does he reckon it's boring to watch? Is it boring?
No, I don't think it's boring. Not at all. No. I mean, I haven't... when I think about this tournament and when I remember it in years to come, I will think to that South Africa-Italy game and just how... I was just glued to the TV. I was loving it. It was brilliant. It was entertaining, and I thought South Africa actually played really well. They had some really skilled players. It's not the same... You can't sit there and say, it's bad to watch because, if you're comparing it to men's football, yes, it is bad to watch.
Yeah, but some men's football's awful to watch, mate.
No. But the pinnacle of men's football, the FIFA World Cup, or the Premier League, whatever, but the FIFA World Cup is so far ahead of the Women's FIFA World Cup in terms of just out-and-out skill and quality. Of course. There's no debate.
Of course.
However, you could still have entertaining games. You can still go out there and entertain your fans. And that's what I think a lot of these games are doing.
I thought that Sweden-United States penalty shootout was, that's amongst some of the best sport I've watched all year.
Yeah.
Just because of the sheer drama of it, the theatre of it.
The thing is, men's players miss penalties horrendously as well. So when you get to that
during the World Cup,
yeah.
and we were asking everyone during the Men's World Cup, why do you fanny a penalty like that? Why don't you just get up and welling? The standard of the football that you've been watching, though.
I'm trying the games that I've watched pretty much all the way through. The first and all 3 New Zealand games. I watched all of those. I watched the Australia-Ireland game. I watched and the South Africa Italy game.
And you're going to one of the matches this weekend.
I'm going to one on Friday night. The quality's good. The pace of the passing isn't the only thing I can really compare it to is like Premier League football. I watch the Premier League every weekend, and I watch the World Cup when it's on and whatnot, and the Champions League when that's on. The pace of the passing isn't the same. The strength and power in the shots isn't the same. The precision, especially with the corners, I've noticed the corners there's a big difference, isn't the same. The goalkeeping skill level, I think, also is, not to be too rude, there's a stark difference between men and women in goalkeeping. And the pace at which they run as well. But it's not to say that you'll have moments in games, and I think our goal that we scored against Norway is a great example of this, where you have really good link-up play between players, really good accurate passing. You have some players who are outpacing others, running around them. You have some brilliant shots. I mean, you had that Panama free kick. It was like, it felt like it was at the halfway line. It wasn't that far.
Glorious,
but it was a brilliant goal, and it was a brilliant bit of skill. And it's entertaining to watch, and there are some really good skilled players and teams there. There were some really ordinary teams in the group stage, but once you carve those out, and now you're down to we're coming up to the 8 best teams essentially in the tournament in the world. They are 8 really good teams, and they put out a good product. The problem is that people get hell-bent on comparing it, and I see it a lot on Twitter, comparing it to men's football. Don't compare it to something that's so starkly different.
Yeah, you're talking about 2 different games, 2 different sports. I keep going back to the basketball model. I mean, what I really noticed about watching women play basketball is there is no power. You know, no one's smashing the basket, no one's dunking the hell, no one's doing any of that. They kind of, to me, lope up the court. But that doesn't mean I don't like it and I'm not interested in it. The absence of the foul, well, apart from the red card last night, the fouls, the diving, the antics. That's one great thing about there's no posturing in women's football. It's the same in the rugby last year, I thought, at the Women's World Cup final, was that you got a really good game of sport to watch. You got a shite load more action watching the women, our black friends, play in England than you do in a men's test match where they spend 60 minutes wandering from ruck to maul to line out to scrum. You know, the ball just seemed to be in play a lot, and that's what I'm liking. I'm liking the lack of the play acting, which to me is a blight on the men's game. Do you know what I'd love them to do? What I'd love them to do is that, you know how you can do, they do retrospective, that the bunker can look back at fouls and foul play in NRL. What they should do at the end of every Premier League round is go through the diving, get all the videos of all the diving, all the play acting, and have a judiciary that looks at that, then publishes it, embarrasses the hell out of it, and go, you're a flopper. Remember how they're actually bringing in an anti-flop rule in the NBA now, aren't they? You're a flopper, that's a dive, automatic 1-game suspension. It would stop it within a week.
You can't give out a 1-game suspension.
Why not?
Because you can't.
Because you've got to get rid of it.
It's far too extreme.
Well, this is the difference between you and me. It is not extreme to me. What's extreme is flopping on the ground and trying to get a penalty when the guy hasn't touched you. That's extreme.
Well, yeah, I think I agree with you, but you can't give a suspension for that.
Yes, you can.
You can go in for a hard tackle and injure someone.
How about 6 of the best on the new buttocks?
How about Jordan Pickford, who ruined our Premier League defence a couple of years ago with a terrible challenge of Virgil van Dijk, and I think has stolen about 3 or 4 really top years off of Van Dijk because of the knee injury. He didn't even get red-carded. He didn't even get red-carded,
Well, actually, retry it afterwards. Go back to these fouls, retry it afterwards.
But you know why he didn't get red-carded? Because Van Dijk was offside. So because he was offside, it didn't matter what Pickford did to him. He wasn't going to get in trouble.
That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do though is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.